Hello, nerds. We're doing some more reaction stuff today. Shadow of Intent is the band. The name of the song, I forget, but let's pull the thing back up so I can read it. Name of the song is The Migrant. This is the newest track from Shadow of Intent. And I really dig Shadow of Intent. I'm super excited to listen to this and do this reaction and stuff. But before we can get to that, let's do this thing real quick. Well, hello there, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for this reaction video. We have a couple of things to get out of the way before we can get back to said video. First and foremost, I do reactions as more of a initial analysis. So we're going to be stopping this. We're going to be talking over certain things. We're going to be replaying sections. We're going to be doing a lot of things that are not conducive to somebody who just wants to watch the original content. If you would rather watch the original content uninterrupted, then please go do that. I definitely would recommend that before you join me here on this reaction and analysis. Beyond that, I have to get my qualifications out of the way. I have been training in music since I was a little kid, which means approximately 30 years. I have been a professional musician and studio producer for about 20 of those 30 years. I have also been making, directing, and editing music videos and YouTube content for over a decade at this point. So I have a base of knowledge that lends itself to adding something constructive to this conversation. And that is exactly what this is. This is a conversation. This is my interpretation of what we are about to react to and analyze. If you have a different interpretation, that's what the comment section is for. Let's have a conversation about this thing, about why it may or may not be the greatest thing ever, whatever it is. I welcome the comments. I do request, though, that you try and be constructive with your criticism, or you at least have some sort of knowledge base to work from, because gotcha moments are not going to work in this comment section. I do have a pretty strong knowledge base and a pretty strong opinion most of the time. So, all of that being said, thank you very much for joining me right now, and let's get back to your regularly scheduled reaction video. Okay, so the last time we did reactions, the Tim Pool song, I forgot how to do a reaction on the Generally Nerdy channel. So I forgot all the structure and everything, and so let's not do that this time, shall we? So from the intro, let's talk a little bit about my personal history with the band. Shadow of Intent, I found because they did that cover of Laid to Rest by Lamb of God. It was great. I really, really liked it. And so I've kind of been pretty big on those dudes ever since. Or these dudes, I guess. And there is, I don't know, there's this resurgence of deathcore right now that I am really, really digging, and these guys are definitely a part of that. And I think they're probably one of the top dogs of this deathcore resurgence, and I'm pretty stoked about it. So, according to... Is it Wikipedia? Yeah, according to Wikipedia, this is a real brief, actual, like, kind of the first paragraph of their Wikipedia entry is as follows. Let's check this out just to give you an idea of who the band actually is. So, Shadow of Intent is a North American deathcore band from Connecticut. They formed in 2013 as a Halo-themed studio project by Ben Duerr and Chris Wiseman. The band's name is a reference to a Covenant ship in the Halo series. That's why it sounds so super familiar. Okay. They are not signed to a label and have released their albums independently. They've released 4 studio albums to date, along with 2 instrumental versions of previous releases and a deluxe album. Their 4th studio album, entitled Elegy, was released independently on January 14th, 2022. So I believe that's what record this song comes from. But I don't believe enough to, or I'm not uncertain enough to actually go double check and verify, because we're just here to listen to the music, man. All right, so Expectations is next, and Expectations, I think, is it's gonna be heavy. It's gonna be good. I anticipate liking this song. I've definitely done my best to not listen to it. So like I try and always do, all of the reactions are as pure as possible. I don't think I even accidentally heard a couple of seconds of this track necessarily at this point. We're going in with virgin ears. As far as production goes, I'm very interested to hear now that I'm finally listening to these guys with like an actual critical ear. I'm very interested to hear what they're gonna have as far as the bottom end goes, because deathcore is a difficult genre to have anything other than rock bass syndrome. Those that are uninitiated in what rock bass syndrome is just playing the root note of whatever the guitar player is playing. Sometimes, especially in more aggressive styles of metal, you're doing a very similar run as the guitar player, but still nothing to differentiate the bass from the guitar necessarily, aside from the frequencies being played. So I'm very interested to see if they do anything to alleviate their own rock bass syndrome. I don't necessarily anticipate they're going to. Yeah, I don't really think there's anything else as far as Expectations. So let's go over and do the thing, shall we? All right, let's play this video. Oh, hey, look. Yeah, Halo-ish. Science fiction-y, anyway. That's hilarious. I didn't realize that was a Halo reference. Oh, my God. Very cinematic. Yep. Yeah, so again, it's a genre thing. The rock bass syndrome happens. When you're playing, blast beats to 30-second notes and 64th notes and stuff, it becomes difficult to come up with an antithesis line to whatever the guitar player is doing with the bass. That then is not going to get lost in the mix, because mixing a band like this is also a bit of a nightmare, sonically speaking, because they're just all over the place, and you want those guitars to be as crushing as possible. And one of the things that I have learned in more recent years of production, one of the things that really makes guitar feel crushing is the bottom end of the bass. If the bass is there, if the bass is in the right spots, I guess I should say, because there are still more creative ways to do it rather than just playing what the guitar player is playing. But if the bass is in the right spots, and if it's present, if there's enough presence on the bass, that makes the guitar feel heavier. So the most common way to do that from a production and a performance standpoint is to effectively just have the bass player play the bottom end of the guitar. So if the guitar player is doing like, you have the bass player doing, it's I mean, I just kind of whatever that lick, but yeah, it is what it is. Like, I can't get too mad about it, because that's just kind of the state of the genre. So, continuing on. Ooh, they are super low. Is that an A? That might even be A flat. All right, so we're gonna go back ever so briefly, see if I can get this to find. Screw it. Let's check this out. All right, so guitar. All right, look at where on the neck he's playing. So he's playing. Let's get my guitar up here. He's playing. Looks like just above the 12th fret. So he's probably somewhere here. But again, tonally it's going to be different because obviously they're tuned a little bit lower than me, which is really cool. Again, I think that's like an A flat that their open string is. So he's here, right? Now we're going to see the bass player next, and he's going to be in a very similar position. So that's the bass player, and he's also playing. Oh, is it the bass player though? Am I seeing things? Yeah, that's totally the bass player. So if the guitar player is playing here, let's play a more pleasing chord, shall we? So if he's playing here, and the bass player is playing here, like that leaves very little for the sonics to be as diverse as possible. I started that sentence in a direction I didn't want to go, so I had to find a way. But so instead of where are we? Because it's so low. Instead of doing this guy, you could do an inverse of this. You could play your bass down here. Where is that going? Right here. So this is a feasible note, and then you've got this to play with, and you've got this to play with, and like there's a lot more sonically you can do with your bass than just. And I mean, obviously, he's doing a little bit more than that because the guitar lick is a lot more involved than just vamping on the one chord. I would imagine they're moving between 2 or 3 chords with the guitar licks. But yeah, there's just a sonically better way of being a bass player in a deathcore band that I think most bass players just don't do. And it's the genre. I'm going to say that a lot, I'm sure, but I just, if it was me, I'd play something different in order to just make that sound even bigger. That's the point. When you're adding dynamics, you're making the sound bigger. If you add them correctly, it sounds amazing. I wish I understood my vocal instrument better so that I could do a proper analysis. Like, I'm still learning the screamy stuff. So like I can't really speak to that, but that's one of the things I really, really love about Shadow of Intent is Homeboy's vocals are impressive. I described their cover of Laid to Rest by Lamb of God. Or it's not Laid to Rest. It was Walk With Me in Hell. I can't remember. Whatever the song. Walk With Me in Hell. So their cover of Walk With Me in Hell is, if Lamb of God's version of that song is like a demon hunter going through hell to kill demons, the Shadow of Intent version of that song is the demon mocking the demon hunter because his vocals are just so much more brutal. And that is very much on display for this track. I want to go back and re-listen to that line just because it's so in, like, I can't even open my larynx wide enough to get that much bottom end in a growl. Just, yeah, it's great. Let's listen to that. I mean, I understand there is a little bit of production on that voice, But most of what I'm hearing on his voice is there is a second. I mean, there's a number of layers to the vocals, but most of the vocals are emphasizing what's already there. But there is a secondary vocal that sounds like it might be altered in post-production to get even a little bit deeper as far as like those bottom end tones for the voice. But it sounds like we have a couple of very similar takes and just like maybe a bit of a chorus effect over the top of it to kind of broaden the tone in the stereo mix. And other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot that is being affected on the voice. That's just how brutal that is. That's, I dig it. I dig it so much. Oh, that's a fun little performance note that we can go over right there. 35. Let's see if I can get it right on top. Nope. Let's go back again. Right there. So I know that's a good pause even too. You probably can't see it super well because compression on YouTube and whatnot. But so right here, this right here is the grill of the microphone. That right there is the grill. All right. And this right here is the opening of his mouth. So he is effectively like swallowing this microphone in order to get these tones. Because, and this is true for any kind of vocal, when you're doing a vocal that is that bottom heavy, it takes a shit ton of air. You have to have incredible diaphragm control. Also, it's very difficult to make it a loud noise because you're like if I just hit the open string on my guitar versus the highest string on my guitar, you hear the vibrations. There are less vibrations going here than here. And that's just sonics. That's just how sonics work. The higher the pitch, the more vibrations, whatever it is that's making that pitch has to make. And that's also the sound waves as they travel through the air. There's a lot of vibrations there. So the lower the pitch, the opposite is true. There are less vibrations, and so the thing making the noise has to vibrate less. That less vibration is very difficult to make loud as the high notes. Especially when the thing vibrating is your larynx or the vocal folds in your throat. Just the nature of our anatomy is as such. So, like if you watch a cappella groups, there's a great example of this. The group, I think they call themselves the Coats now. They used to be called the Trench Coats, but then Columbine. Their bass vocalist in that a cappella group, when they do the Elvira cover, which there's a very, very low note in, ba-doom bep, ba-doom bep, ba-doom bep, ba-down, bow, and then the next line is ba-doom bep, ba-doom bep, ba-doom bep, ba-down, bow. He does this same microphone technique in that he swallows the mic. Like you getting it as close to your vocal folds as possible. Like that is where you need the microphone. And you can't do this because then you lose the enunciation. So like in the mouth is where it goes. And for harsh vocals, for scream vocals, a scream is another thing that requires a lot of air in order to pull off and not hurt yourself. And also requires a lot of diaphragm control, requires a lot of control of all of the elements here in your throat. And so they're not as loud as you think. A microphone is a beautiful thing. Technology has helped aggressive music in many, many, many ways. That being said, it's still impressive. Like, even though I understand the mechanics of it, it's still great. I still dig it. So here's something that I really appreciate about Shadow of Intent as well, as far as their sonics and the way that they have their mix done, their sonic landscape, if you will. A lot of deathcore bands have two guitar players, a bass player, and it's a newer trend in the genre to also have some sort of blackened element to your sound. So you've got that symphonic bit. Lorna Shore does this. I'm really drawing a blank on other great examples. I think Of Sulfur also does this, and obviously these guys do this. You can hear the symphonic element, but I think the difference here, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, because judging by the video and judging by what I'm hearing, which, it sounds like they have one guitar player. And that is for lead purposes, even though sometimes the lead also gets taken care of by the synth. But what the rhythm guitar player would do, obviously it's different dynamically, but effectively the same thing. What the rhythm guitar player would be doing is being covered by those symphonic elements, those synthesizers. So I really appreciate that, because a lot of times one of my big issues with deathcore mixes is they just get really muddy, because you have two guitar players and symphonic elements all vying for the same sonic ground. You can do two of those elements fairly easily, but add the third and it becomes much more difficult, and it just in generally a bit more muddy. So yeah, really dig that. I'm a fan. Oops, wrong play button. That's the flood. Wow. This is a death metal song about the flood. Deathcore song, sorry. I mean, they just got so much cooler in my eyes. I'm not gonna lie, that's great. And also, now that we're to the solo section, like there's a sonic difference in the mix once we get to this, because I'm pretty sure at this point, because we haven't seen otherwise, and it still sounds like I'm not picking out another guitar. As the guitar goes into the solo, the rhythm part that is played under the solo is being held down by not just the bass, but also the synths. So these symphonic elements are holding the rhythm down with this. I really dig this mix, this performance mix. There's still guitar in that rhythm mix underneath, but I don't think should they play it live, if they were to be honest with their live playing. Let's say it that way. I think that's fairly neutral. Not really. That's whatever. If they were playing without a backing track, which I would be very surprised if they did play without a backing track. If they had like somebody on stage playing synths, that would honestly at this point kind of surprise me. But if they were to do this without a backing track, then the feel would be similar live as it is in the recording, because the guitar cuts out. If you have one guitar player, you can't play the rhythm and the lead at the same time. especially when your lead is a solo like this. So yeah, that's I really dig the mix on this sound. Yeah. Yes, please, and thank you. Yeah. Oh, no. Well, now you know what the next reaction video is going to be. Oh, okay. So let's go back to the fancy camera. Yeah, I feel like for the most part, I left it pretty broad with the expectations, so that's not really saying a whole lot. But I feel like my expectations were met. I really appreciate a lot about this band, and now that I know that that's a legitimate Halo reference, the band name, yeah, I think I like them even more. Oh, I can't get it to squeal. I'm in the wrong effect. That's why. But that is Shadow of Intent. Whatever. I'm claustrophobic right now. That is Shadow of Intent. That is the whatever the song title was. I can't remember because I have a horrible memory. The Migrant. I dig it. That is the Shadow of Intent. If you like heavy music, these guys are probably, like I've said at the beginning, these are like front runners for this new deathcore revival. I did go check out their record Elegy. It's pretty great. I have yet to dig much deeper into their stuff beyond this record. Their Lamb of God cover for Walk With Me in Hell is awesome. Go check that out. It takes a whole hell of a lot for me to be impressed by somebody covering a band that I love, because 98% of the time the original is a million times better. I don't know if I can say that about the original version of Walk With Me in Hell. I think the Shadow of Intent version is right up there in quality and performance and everything. So definitely a great band to keep an eye on. If you haven't, go listen to this track specifically. Go check out everything that they have put out. Don't just take my word for it. Form your own opinion. That is where we're going to be ending this reaction video, nerds. Thank you very much for sticking with me to the end. We will see you in the next one. There is very likely going to be a new regular video sometime soon, so stay tuned to the channel for that. We do news and pop culture things regularly, and these reaction videos are just a fun aside to keep things fresh. And yeah, I appreciate your faces. Thank you very much. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.